One of my favorite podcasts is called My First Million. It's by Sam Parr and Sean Purry, two like successful entrepreneurs. So that's actually how I got into events because Sam, one of his first companies that really took off was events. So I was kind of copying his model in like the first handful of events he was doing. So on that podcast, they talk about Nick Gray a lot because they're all good friends with each other. Nick's known as like one of the most interesting and unique human beings, and he definitely is. I can say after hanging out with him. He really got good at hosting events, smaller events, connecting with people. Ultimately, he wrote a book kind of about his process of what he would do for events that he was hosting. The book's kind of centered around how to make friends and properly network as an adult. And he's a master at that. I was hosting like smaller events just to get started. And then that's where I read his book. But this guy apparently is the best at doing this. And I was like, this guy is infinitely better than me. So I should keep taking advice from him. And then, dude, he just in the book, he's like, oh, when you're going to host your first party, email me. My team will hold you accountable. We'll give you like action steps 2 weeks before your event, the week before your event, the day before your event, where it's like relevant information right when you need it. So it's kind of like holding your hand to host these events. And so I was doing that for like one or two of mine. And then he has his phone number just in his email signature. So I just picked up the phone and called him and asked him about a couple of my events and told him like my long-term vision of having a conference and all this stuff with events. And he's like, okay, this is how I'd do it if I was you. And he was like literally just like giving me consistent advice on how to do it. And then after a few times on the phone with him, I saw on Twitter he had posted he's looking for a PR person, which is kind of just like outreach and such. And I was like, oh, I've done so much outreach with copywriting and email marketing and stuff. Like, I'm sure I'd be good enough at this, and then I can also help him host events. And so I like called him. Probably the third time I called him, I was like, oh, I saw on Twitter you were posting about this. Like, I'd be the perfect person for the job. Here's why. And he's like, oh yeah, totally. And that's kind of how like our relationship um, has grown.